Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek, and welcome to day 18 of my 31 days of Halloween reviews. And I have a pretty great treat for you today. Marvel has just released this month 3 compilations of their great classic horror stories. And today we're going to look at Werewolf by Night. This is a little bit out of order because they released a compilation of the Tomb of Dracula as well as a compilation of their regular general horror stories. I forgot the name of it. I've got it over here in a pile. But the reason I'm going a little out of order, of course, Tomb of Dracula came first, and then Werewolf by Night. But we've already done three different, I think, actual vampire videos this month, and we've yet to cover a werewolf story. And we're just a little over halfway through this month, so that's a tragedy. And the werewolf is my favorite monster, actually, of all the classic monsters. So definitely wanted to talk about werewolves sooner than later. We've got at least one more werewolf story coming up in the month as well, so stay tuned for that. Rest assured, don't worry, we will get back to the Tomb of Dracula and the other horror stuff, including Blade and Satana and all that great stuff. But today I want to talk about Werewolf by Night. So as you can see, I have some of my werewolf accoutrements out here. These are both representations of the Lon Chaney werewolf. This one isn't perhaps the greatest, but as part of a series, you've already seen my Frankenstein and Dracula throughout these videos. Maybe I'll show them all as well. There's a mummy as well involved, but I like this nice figure, nice large plastic figure, pretty solid. I had one when I was a child. I don't know whatever happened to that, so I got this one from eBay about 10 years ago, and I've kept it nicely still. If you've ever seen that bizarre independent horror film called Wendigo, then you recognize this from the credits waving around. And this one is a bust that came with the collector's editions of all of the Universal Monster movies that were released around the time of Van Helsing came out. I forgot what year that was. It was and I have the Dracula and Frankenstein as well. I need to bring in show. Unfortunately, there's a few chippings that make me cry a bit, but can't do anything about that. I keep these on the windowsill at my office on campus, and it took a tumble once, unfortunately, so trying to be extra careful with them. But a great collectible, great bust. Really pretty good likeness too there. And then the imprint on the bottom, so really happy about these. The werewolf story, like I said, the Wolfman is my favorite of the classic monsters, and it's so easy to get the werewolf wrong. In fact, 9 times out of 10, especially in modern day werewolf stories, they always get the werewolf wrong. And one of the problems that they run into is they try to make him a shapeshifter or a skinwalker. And they just make it somebody who runs with a pack, because wolves run in a pack, so werewolves need to run in a pack. And that's just silly. That's not the allure of the werewolf. That's a separate thing. The skinwalkers and shapeshifters come to us from ancient mythology, and they are a specific type of monster. And if you want to go the wolf route, that's fine. But the Wolfman is a specific evolution of this character. Really, the Wolfman comes from vampires and Dracula. I mean, usually ancient vampire stories also have them shifting into either bats or wolves. In the Dracula novel by Bram Stoker, he turns into a wolf. He's a werewolf as well as a vampire. So the Wolfman is kind of a branching out, taking that one element of a different, larger creature and isolating it, and really just exposing it for all it's worth in a good story. And Werewolf by Night does that. So a good werewolf story, a good Wolfman story, he has to be a loner. You have to really get into the pathos of the character. Yes, wolves run in packs, but this is not just a wolf. It's not just a man who becomes a wolf. It's a man who becomes a wolf man. This is another problem that stories often get wrong in their representations of the werewolf. I hate it when you have a story and, okay, it's a werewolf, like True Blood, for example. True Blood teased werewolves all that first season, and then the second season, they were going to have werewolves, and I was very excited. And then they introduced the werewolves, and it's just a skinny-legged little dog. I mean, they use an actual real wolf. And I know that wolves are dangerous. I know that wolves, but that's natural dangerous. They're, that's not a monster. That's not, a werewolf should be this big, uncanny combination of wolf and man. That Lon Chaney makeup just had it perfect. That was great. And if you want to go a little more extreme and go a little bit more like the Lycans of Underworld or something, that's fine. I really think that a film that got it perfect for my taste anyway, was the remake of The Wolfman. Even though that movie wasn't a perfect movie, with Benicio del Toro and all, and Anthony Hopkins. I did like the representations of the wolf. It was showing what they can do with that classic Wolfman makeup look, a little bit more with the effects and stuff. So I really like that combination of wolf and man, and that really gets to the character. He's not a man who becomes a wolf and doesn't suddenly start running with a pack or something like that. Men in society are isolated. Men in civilization are isolated. And you know the old saying, even a man who's it's actually in here, so let me just go ahead and read it so I don't butcher it. But it's the saying, it's in the Wolfman, Lon Chaney. Fortunately, this Lon Chaney character doesn't like to stay up. Even a man who's pure of heart and says his prayers at night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the moon is full and bright. So that's the old folk poem. It's from the Lon Chaney Wolfman film, and they have it here in the beginning of Werewolf by Night, which I love. I love the representation of this Wolfman. It's very combination of man and wolf, and even a touch ape-like, which plays into the de-evolution aspect of the monster, which I think is fun. So great representation there. We'll talk a little bit more about that story in a second. But yeah, that idea. So this man who's playing by all of the rules of society. He's a man pure at heart. He's a man who says his prayers. He's a man who does everything society says he needs to. But society itself is very isolating because it forces us to repress the animal within. And, you know, I mean, to be honest, that's a good thing, right? You don't want to just act on any sort of animal urge you have. But we often take it so far in society. And the stories of a werewolf, stories of this beast that can come out and just, you can't control it, so you're not really at fault necessarily. You know, those appeal to us, where you just let that beast out and it bursts forth in a fury of overwhelming power and hunger, and that's just, that's just something so appealing. I mean, that's the Incredible Hulk, you know, that's Jekyll and Hyde, and in that kind of story really just sees its most seminal form, I think, in a good werewolf, wolfman type story. And that's what we have in Werewolf by Night. So a couple things about this compilation. First of all, I'm not nearly all the way through it. Like I said, all of these compilations came out this same month, and with paper grading and with doing all of the reading that I'm doing for all these reviews, I just have not been able to get through the entirety, especially of this Werewolf by Night series, because this one's pretty thick, as you can see. So I'm not even halfway through it yet, but like a good Catholic, only a Catholic geek has Werewolf by Night marked with the St. Jude bookmarker, so maybe that's my warding against the curse. But the art's beautiful. Mike Plug is the artist who began with that. I don't know how long he stuck with it, or even through this volume, if he sticks with it forever, throughout the duration of this volume. But beautiful art. Gary Conway is the writer. Len Wein is actually even credited there, so I guess he came on as a writer. Marv Wolfman. Well, there are crossovers in this compilation with Tomb of Dracula. As you can see here, that's the edition that I have. Tomb of Dracula we'll be reviewing later, but the Tomb of Dracula crosses over with Werewolf by Night here at some point. So Marv Wolfman wrote that, and I even saw a glimpse of Spider-Man in here later as well. So that's pretty cool. I can't wait to get to those portions of the story. So really great stuff. This werewolf, first of all, it's kind of cheesy, but I've come to like it. The young man who becomes a werewolf is named Jack Russell. I'm like, really, guys? You name him the name of a dog breed? but it's okay. You get over that. And he's that typical classic good young man. On his 18th birthday, he inherits the werewolf curse from his father. So it's not a story where he gets bitten or anything like that. And you find all this out in the first few pages, so I'm not ruining anything for you. And he becomes a werewolf 3 nights of the month, you know. So it's just a good story about the curse of the full moon. It's not like he can just turn into a werewolf at will, at least at this point in the tales. I haven't followed the entirety of Werewolf by Night. I know he stuck around in comics for a long time, even joined up with that other team of characters. I forgot what they were called. The team of dark characters. I think Ghost Rider was a part of them, Satana, and a few different people. But that was a pretty interesting story. I just need to get into some more of that. So this is really solid stuff, really solid werewolf stuff. I will say that this is in the 70s, so we're still operating under the Comics Code Authority. And this was a new thing, having zombie, werewolf, ghost, vampire stories. This was newly allowed. Horror was coming back, and it was finally being tolerated again, specifically by the Comics Code Authority. There's an interesting story. I don't know if I don't know how true it is, or if this is really what got ghosts and whatnot underway back into comics, but Michael Uslan, the great comic historian and scholar. He tells a great story when he was a child reading comic books, and he was always very into the Spectre. And after this, once the Silver Age was in sway and DC started to bring back all of their heroes again, reinventing Green Lantern and reinventing the Flash and such, he wrote in and asking for a Spectre to return because he really wanted Spectre to come back. And the editor wrote back to him and said, "We can't have Spectre, we can't have living dead, we can't have ghosts. You know, it's Comics Code Authority." And Michael Uslan wrote back and said, "Really? Because I'm pretty sure this Casper comic I'm holding in my hand right now is a ghost." And apparently he got a letter back the next day saying Spectre will be returning in the next month or whatever. It's a great story. It sounds a little trite to be really true, or really the impetus behind the return to these characters in horror in comics. But it is great to have these characters back. But I mentioned that they're in the comics, they're under the Comics Code Authority at this point, because you don't really see a lot of blood and gore, at least in these original stories. They're loads of fun, and I highly recommend them. But you don't really see full out horror represented in terms of, well, I mean, I don't like slasher gore, you know, just for the heck of it. So I don't. It's not necessarily that I want to see a bunch of blood, but I am a little. When he attacks somebody as a werewolf, he's just kind of like wrestling them and throwing them around, and occasionally he'll scrape them with his claws or whatever. At least in these beginning stories that I've only gotten through, so it's sometimes a little disappointing. It's like, dude, you're a werewolf, tear him apart, you know. But you know, that might come with the time. And I also can forgive it too because he's still a very young werewolf, and he's his bestial side is learning even as he's learning how to cope with the bestial side. And it's really cool the way they do this. So it's all first person narrated. So you're receiving the story firsthand. He's telling you what he did here. Even when he becomes a werewolf, you hear him say, you know, "And the beast within me was barely cognizant of this or that," you know, but he's still narrating what's going on, and you do have that disconnect between the beast as this second nature within him. It's almost like an Incredible Hulk kind of dichotomy there, and it's a lot of fun. I'm, like I said, I'm not very far into it, but I can't wait to keep going. This story did introduce a few of the elements of Marvel Comics that we know and love today. For example, the Darkhold. For all of my fellow Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Darkhold played a huge part. It's that magical book from another dimension that holds all of this power for those who read it, and it's dangerous and such. The Darkhold is a book that was passed down to Jack Russell by his true birth father, the one that handed him down this werewolf curse. So this is the entrance of the Darkhold in the Marvel Universe, which is a lot of fun. You meet Gorgon, the mutant, in this story already, and I'm looking forward to more things that I find out in it as well. So, like I said, the Werewolf by Night's still around in Marvel Comics. Well, I don't know if he's around right now in Marvel Comics. I'm certainly not reading their current status quo nonsense, but I do know that he's stuck around well into the 90s even, you know, as a character. So wherever he is now, he can easily come back at any point, Werewolf by Night. So a great character. I'm really excited to be able to follow him from the beginning of his appearances here, and to really kind of follow him through and follow all of his exploits within the Marvel Universe now. Highly recommended. If you're a fan of good classic werewolf stories, this is the book for you. If you're like me and you don't like the silly nonsense, sparkly vampire and shirtless bro wolf packs in the woods nonsense, then this is definitely a book for you. Good classic Wolfman, and that dichotomy of he is a wolf, so there's a pack nature to him, but he's a man, so he stays solitary. And he stays solitary because even as a wolf, there's some part of him that remains ashamed of the fact that he is a wolf. He's constantly wanting to get away from people and get into the forest, and you know, that's just that brilliant. You can't really torture a character any other way than that special, unique curse that you give him, and that's a great pathos. It can be overdone, it can be done in cliche ways, but I think this story really nails it, and that's the real appeal of a werewolf story. So that's all I've got with this. I'll speak to it later, maybe even after October, once I continue finishing the volume and keep pecking away at it. But do stay tuned for more. Like I said, we are going to get to Tomb of Dracula and the other Marvel magazine compilation, horror magazine compilation. We've got some other great stuff. I do have another werewolf story and a couple surprises left. So we're not nearly done yet with this October. We are only on day 18 and still have over 10 days to go until we reach our big night. And I do have a little special treat on the big night, so stay tuned for that. And until tomorrow, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the superhero and Halloween stories you love. Thanks for watching.